Every time you enter the party from the party finder, you probably wondered, how bad will the players be? Will they die 4 times and cost you your S+, and with it the chance for Giant Sword and Necron handle? Or will they fail the Blaze puzzle, which seems to happen every time? To solve that, I wrote down the data from over 200 dungeon runs, from floor 1 to 7, which means that it doesn't matter where you are, at the end you'll be able to predict what will happen when you enter that party. Let's start with floor 1 and work our way up to floor 7. So we won all the time, floor 1 is pretty easy, but the score was 70% A, so don't expect to get an S most of. Yeah, the deaths don't tell us much, but 30% of the time it's more than 8, which is a lot. Here we can see that 60% of the time it's between 3 and 6, so that's what you can expect from them. 20% puzzle fail, that's, you know, a little worse than I thought, but it's fine. Here I don't think I did enough runs for it to be accurate, because the higher or lower should be more than the tic-tac-toe, but here you don't see it. Again, 20% teammate disconnect, that's pretty average. And 20% of the time they left me alone to kill the boss, which is a lot. And did they win that? That's purely for my ego. Thank you, I won. Nice. This is the stat that I hate the most. 20% of the time they entered before it was S, meaning we could have gotten a better score, but that didn't happen, obviously. Here we have floor 2, let's see if they improve on themselves. So we lost 1 time, which is to be expected. Floor 2 is harder, but they did improve on the amount of SS+, which is nice. Now the major problem with floor 2 is the deaths. 50% of the time it was more than 8, which is a lot of deaths. And the time, you can see that it's most of the time between 6 and 7 minutes. I don't think you can expect them to not fail any puzzles. I just think I didn't do enough runs for it to actually count. And here we see that the disconnect is quite high in floor 2. They disconnected quite a lot. So you should expect to only have 3 teammates. Now they left me alone only 1 time and I did win, so my ego got a nice boost here. And again, the stat that I hate the most, 50% of the time, that's so much, they enter before. So if you do floor 2, be prepared for them to enter before it's S. So here we have floor 3, where I did a little more runs. Now we lost just 1 time, which is good. And a huge improvement here, 65% S, that's very good. You can finally expect to get the obsidian chest. Again, the deaths don't really matter before floor 5. But 40% of the time 1 death and 20% of the time 8+, which is not that good, but it's fine. Now the time here can really depend on which party you have. It can be 3 and it also can be 12. Like floor 2, I think I didn't do enough runs for it to actually count, so you cannot expect them to not fail any puzzles. That's just not happening. Here we have the lowest teammate disconnected, only 6%, that's I think the best. Here we can see that's also pretty good, they left me alone just 1 time. And I did lose, I think I was mage and lost to the guardians. Again, we have the most annoying stat, 25, that's quite a lot. Entered before S, not as bad as floor 2. And in floor 3, in the addition of the trap room, I added how many times I did it, which came to about 45%, that's a lot. So overall floor 3 was kind of an improvement, but floor 4 is where they really begin to actually be, you know, decent. Here we have floor 4, where I started to do 20 runs, which means the data is very accurate. We won all the time, and again we see a big improvement, 85% S. You can finally expect them to most of the time get the S score. Death again doesn't tell us much, it really depends on your party. In floor 5 it will be more important. Now the time was quite long, 50% of the runs were between 10 and 13, which is a lot, but the floor 4 boss fight is quite long, so it is to be expected. Now again, you can expect them to fail about 20% of the time in the puzzles. And as I said, higher or lower is the more problematic one. So if you can do it yourself, do it. Or else they will probably fail. Here we have 15% disconnect, which means you probably wouldn't be 4 players in the boss fight, but it could happen. Here we can see that they didn't leave me alone most of the time, and I did win that, so nice boost to my ego. And again we have that, which is nice to see, finally, that they didn't enter before it was S. Let's see the last one, trap room. I did it 40% of the time, which is 2 times as more as I should have, like on average, but you know what, I'll take it. So overall, floor 4 is where they really start to be decent. Here we have floor 5, let's hope that they continue the improvement from floor 4, even though we now have the S Plus and the Bedrock chest. We won all the time, which was nice. And here we can see, that's more than I expected. 75% S Plus, which is very good, only 25% S. So you can probably expect them to get S Plus, finally. Here we can see something very interesting. About 15% of the time, there were more than 3 deaths. So that was most of the reason why we haven't gotten the S Plus more often and got S instead. The time can really change between 4 and 8 depending on your party, but that's a pretty small range and that's very fast. Again, we see about 20% puzzle fail, and here we have something amazing. That's the only time I saw them fail the 3 weirdos. Most of the time it's just higher or lower and tic-tac-toe. So we have here a 33, 33, 30. The disconnect was quite low, which was good, so you can expect to be 5 players at the boss. I wasn't left alone, which was nice. And it's higher now than floor 4, but it's still not that bad. I think sometimes they don't realize that we can get the S Plus and they just enter. So make sure to know them that, hey, don't enter. And again, the trap room, much more than 20%. So I'm the best teammate, I know. Here we have floor 6, where I have done almost half of all the runs from all the floors. I did a lot of floor 6. So that's pretty good. It is to be expected that we died sometimes to the terracotta. The score is overwhelmingly S+. Finally, you can expect them to get S+. That's very good. Now here we can see the reason why we haven't gotten S+ most of the times. Because 12% of the times we got more than 4, which means we just can't get S+, we can only get S. The time again, very dependent on your party. From 4 to 9, almost all the time that's what you're gonna get. Puzzle fail, only 5. Only 5, that's amazing. I think floor 7 is more, for one reason, I'll let you guess. And here we can see that higher or lower obviously is the most failed one. We have tic-tac-toe and we have quiz, which also happened just one time. Here we have the disconnect, which is not that bad, but they do get annoyed sometimes and just disconnect. I was left alone only 3 times. One time I responded no, where I shouldn't have. You see that's 3 and that's 4. So it's supposed to be 66 and 33, which I think just one time I died to the terracotta, which, you know, what can you do? What can I do alone? It was my absolute pleasure to see that only 2% of the time they entered before it was S+. So thank you, teammates, finally they understand. And here I added, because it's so important in floor 6, how many times the tank died, which is more than I expected, but not that much more. I expected like, I don't know, 4 or 5%. 7 is a little high, but you know, you should pick good tanks. That's what you need to learn from this. And again, almost 50% of the time I did the trap room. So overall, I learned 2 things. One is I'm one of the best teammates you can have. Thank you, thank you. And the second one is floor 6, I think, is the best floor to do with Party Finder. The teammates are decent. They are decent. Some of them are good, some of them are less, but they are decent on average. You can expect to get S+. They don't disconnect that much. They don't fail the puzzle that much. That's very good. Would recommend the 9 out of 10, and if you ask, no, there is no 10 out of 10. Here we have floor 7, where the difficulty of the boss fight really gets to the teammates. They don't handle that well. We can see only 4% fail. That's very good. But the problem is, as you can see, only 65% S+. We have another 35 S, but that's not very high. And here we can see the actual reason for it. 25% of the time we had more than 4 deaths. So that's most of the reason why we haven't gotten the S+. The time again can vary between 9 and 15, which really depends on your party, but when I got to, you know, higher catacombs level, I've gotten more between 9 and 12 than the others. Here we have a spike in the puzzle fail because one reason only. The bomb defuse. They hate it. They don't know how to do it. I recommend one of two things. If you don't know how to cheese it, learn how to cheese it. Or just have a teammate, which both can do it on VC together. We see also a spike in the disconnect. They get really angry, really annoyed. They just leave. They just leave. Don't expect them to not leave you only 4 people in the boss fight. They didn't leave me alone. Nice, very good, thank you. That's beautiful. 100% of the time they didn't enter before it was S+. I did leave the tank dying boss fight. I didn't take it out. Even though in floor 7 it's not that important. I was expecting less than 10%, but you know what, it doesn't really change a lot. Although it can cause some teammates to die, because you know, no tank. And here we can see the only time that I haven't gotten above 20% trap room. Floor 7, you know what, I'll take it. So overall I recommend you have at least 2 teammates with you where you VC together on Discord or whatever. You can have 1, but the teammates are not that good. If you can have more than 3, that'd be amazing. I know you have nothing better to do, just watch this video.